Spaghetti with pesto sauce. Narrated by Jesse Levine. Good evening, everyone. This is your host, Jess, and recently I've had the awesome opportunity to play more Hollow Knight Silksong. I should have probably had the game done by now, but I got caught up busy doing other things. I was looking at timing Borderlands 3 with something, and it ended up going fine, I guess. But here's the thing. So playing through Silksong, I had a lot of questions that popped up in my head, and I think saying them out loud would help me answer some of them. Now, when we start to think about Silksong, the game has a lot of bugs in it, right? Bugs. Bugs. But I find myself with a conundrum. Take Hornet, right? She had a larger hitbox than the Knight had in Hollow Knight, right? I've been thinking about it. I've been putting pieces together in my mind, trying to formulate something that would make some form of sense, right? And here's the question for today. How tall would Hornet be in comparison to a shoe? That is right! A literal shoe! How tall will Hornet be in comparison? Or lengthwise? Really, 3D, dimensions, depth, what's the word for it? Not viscosity, but no, density is not the right word for it, because density... Volume's the right word. Yeah, I am the mathematics. Now, firstly, we have to explain why this is an important question. So, if Hornet ever got into the real world, would you be relatively the same size as Hornet, or would you end up stepping on Hornet every single day? If we're talking about real Hornets are little bastards. And, maybe I won't be as nice to them in real life as comparison to, like, Silksong, Because those stinging bastards stung me one time. I hit it like a hornet's nest when I was a kid and they stung me. To be fair, I did hit the hornet's nest with a stick. Multiple times, in fact. I really tried going to town on that hornet's nest because it looked really funny looking. I was like, what if I hit it with a stick? And a lot of those bastards stung me. And fair enough, you have to defend your hive and stuff and whatnot. But point being is, they were very, very tiny. And so it's like, if you got stung by one of them, you weren't going to have like the worst time in your life. It's like, oh, it hurt like a hornet would. But like, you wouldn't be out of the count, out of commission, like say Hornet Hollow Knight stabbing people. Like, you're down for the count. I sit on the bench, you respawn type of count. But if Hornet were here in real life, could she take out a human? It is quite the interesting question, which is why we have to figure out if Hornet is the size of a shoe or not. Because if Hornet is large enough for a shoe, theoretically, Hornet has enough firepower to take out an actual living person. Why? Because she goes like, Shaw of Eden! But like, it's a big Shaw of Eden, and you're like, ow! And then like, bleh, I'm dead, and you like fall over Peter Griffin style on like the side of the road. Because, like, if she's small enough, it's like, okay, she can't deal enough damage, and you step on her with your shoe, and she goes, pfft. Instead of Silksong, she's like, I'm flattened like a pancake, it's me, Hornet, song. Yeah, that's what I was looking to say. And, that would be fine and dandy. Yet, I have evidence to suggest that Hornet may be as tall as a shoe. Now, let me pull up reference number 1 for you here. Let's bring up the big board. 1, Hornet is really, really tall. Now, take this. It's like, there is a taller character. That character doesn't exist anymore. I've erased them out of Hollow Knight. I really like the character because they give me maps. But for this example, they've been obliterated, blown up, exploded, and we'll never see them again ever. And if you ever mention them whatsoever, you are wrong and in fact are making up things to try to prove my point wrong. Now, anyways, Hornet is very tall. And as you can see, if I were to stretch her out on like an image thing, she would be as tall as a shoe. Now, that's not really a very strong point of evidence, but the next thing will be to help imply even more stuff. Now we have example number 2. Now you take the shoe, as you can see, we have the comparison side by side, and now you flip the shoe and Hornet. No, actually you just flip the shoe. We're just only going to flip the shoe. You flip the shoe. Look at that. Quite interesting, don't you say? You could say Hornet is the same length as the shoe, right? And if Hornet is the same length of the shoe, wouldn't that mean Hornet is taller than the shoe? I think yes. And third, and our final reason why Hornet is bigger than the shoe. If I were to put a shoe into Hollow Knight as like an image, you see that most creatures don't wear shoes, right? But if you were to put a shoe on them, the shoe would actually be very tiny. So if you compare the shoe to Hornet, Hornet is actually towering over the shoe, which if you were to take the shoe and like the average person, Hornet is much taller than the average person. And I said that's like Hornet could be deadly with the size of a shoe. I meant she is extremely deadly with the size of a shoe, because I think you thought it's like, oh, the size of like a regular shoe, like human shoe. Yeah, I did. And if you put the human shoe in the Silksong, that means Hornet is extremely tall. And that means she could easily kill anyone dead. Like, she would stab you and be like, I'm dead. Hornet is so much taller than the shoe. And you know, this is actually terrifying. If you ever see Hollow Knight Silksong in real life, this is going to be one of the scariest images you see when bugs eventually take over the world. And I am saying this, you know, to kiss ass and get on the good side. You know, hello bugs, I've always loved you. When I hit that hornet's nest with the stick, you know, I did it out of love and ignorance. But I'm doing this out of love and now understanding in order to basically say, spare me in the coming bug rebellion, or in this case, revolution that will appear in 2035. And in exchange, I will find you a lot of sugar water. Sugar water, who doesn't love sugar water? Everyone loves sugar water. I know every single bug is like, you know, hook me up with some sugar water. It's going to be great. But Hornet is going to be leading the charge in Hollow Knight Silksong 2, where she takes over the real world and establishes bug dominance over the entire Earth. Now, with that being said, I think you all should start preparing with as much as you can to repel the bug invasion that is going to be incoming. Now that I've also highlighted the sheer intensity that this situation could become, this is your only warning to prepare for the incoming bug revolution. I can't say this much more. You know, this is the time to make peace with bugs. This is the time to become friends with bugs, because when they come, your defenses, you're going to have some really good defenses and repellents in order to stop them. According to 2036 data, 97% of the world is controlled by bugs. The only 3% that is not controlled by bugs is where there are flamethrowers running 24/7. And that's because bugs are weak to fire. Well, actually, speaking of 2037, they're probably going to lose a lot of territory because they're just going to spam flamethrowers. Yeah, the flamethrower meta is pretty broken. So actually, in order to prevent the whole thing in the first place, yeah, you should probably just buy a flamethrower. That way you will never get beaten by Hollow Knight Silksong. Just make sure you don't miss against Hornet or she's going to stab you. So probably even if you did have a flamethrower, you'd still get stabbed. Huh. This is quite an interesting dilemma that I found myself upon. There really is no stopping it, unless you have just an entire shield around you that is completely fire. So you should buy about 20 flamethrowers. Alright, and that's Dimwitted Dusk for today. Buy flamethrowers now, stock up, or else Hornet from Silksong is going to appear at night and stab you.